How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the fuck is going on in the universe for February 11th through the 18th of 2019. Thank you guys so much for being here and liking and watching and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love every single one of you guys and appreciate every single one of you guys. Don't forget, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or if you guys are interested in reading, check out my website below. If you guys definitely want to do a consultation or anything like that, I have that all available on my website. However, again, also, I've been getting a lot of new followers, and I haven't even said thank you guys for following. You know, if this is your first time watching this weekly horoscope, this is my weekly horoscope that I do. Basically get down to the point of what's going on in the universe and basically giving you guys the tools that you'll need to kind of get through the week in the best way possible. So if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. Thanks. Anyway, before we get into the horoscope and everything, this is going to definitely be an interesting week because we have a couple of big things going on. Mars is going to conjoin Uranus this week later on Tuesday, and that's going to be quite a big, I don't want to say an explosion, but basically an explosion is a good way to put it. And then Mars is going to ingress into Taurus like immediately after. We also have Venus conjoining Saturn this week, as well as Mercury, now that he's in Pisces, or whatever you want to call Mercury. Mercury can be whatever you want. Now that Mercury's in Pisces, it's going to conjoin Neptune and actually start to go into shadow before it retrogrades later on here in a couple weeks. So as we go into this week, we're definitely seeing quite a shift in energy where, you know, now that Venus is going to be on top of Saturn, things are getting a little bit more realistic, a little bit more hardcore. Mars is going into Taurus where that Mars in Aries was frustrating. It was on top of Uranus, making things just explosive and whatnot. That's going to cool down a lot more. Now that Mercury is also in Pisces too, going into this water sign, going on top of Neptune, it's going to be in Pisces for a very long time, like 2 months basically. This is definitely a big change of theme, a big, I don't want to say it's not like a huge explosive change, but like the waters are turning, the waters are changing. So expect a different flow of energy this week. Expect, I don't want to say like, oh, it's going to be amazing or it's going to be super negative, but just expect that change to kind of start to really happen this week. So with that being said, let's go ahead and go into the horoscope. So starting off today on Monday, we have the moon in Taurus and it's applying to a trine with Venus and Saturn. So today on Monday, you know, moon is in Taurus. We're wanting to feel a little bit more centered, a little bit more secured, a little bit more, you know, in our foundation, a little bit more grounded is a good way to put it. And as it's trining Venus and it's trining Saturn, this is really about going, you know, where do I really want to ground myself? Where do I want to find security and comfort? And how do I really frame that? How do I really put that into operation? So this is a really good day to kind of settle down for a good, you know, kind of like get your groove on for the week in a sense. The moon's also in Taurus, like, you know, good time to eat food, good time to have a fun time and indulge and stuff. But while Venus is in Capricorn and while she's getting closer to Saturn, this may just be more feeling like, all right, it's time to get a little bit more realistic about things. Where do I want to secure myself? Where do I want to ground myself? And how does that really work? How does that look like, you know, with Venus being in Capricorn, where I've been really talking about Venus in Capricorn is like, dude, it's time to bring value to rules. It's time to bring value to discipline and structure. And so as the moon applies to Venus and Saturn, it's kind of like a nice day to get your groove on in a weird kind of work sense. Anyway, as we do move into Tuesday, the Mars-Uranus conjunction starts to begin. And this is going to be important because Mars is still right there. You know, Mars is basically waiting to break through, waiting to break free. Mars is, you know, all about anger and frustration, and he can cause all these issues, especially if, you know, you're born with a day chart. You know, Mars is a very problematic planet at times. And yeah, sure, he's also about energy and how you assert yourself, how you go about things, how physical you are. And that's all fine and dandy. And as Mars is on top of Uranus, you're probably like, I got all this extra energy and I don't know what to do with it. Well, as Mars goes closer and closer to Uranus, and this is going to be happening between Tuesday and Wednesday, like that night going into the morning. As Mars goes closer and closer to Uranus, this is kind of like, hey, what has built up? What are you wanting to drive towards? What are you wanting to, I keep using the word conquer, like what are you trying to sink your teeth into, and what's frustrating you? What's causing you issues? What are you really experiencing in terms of, I don't want to say anger and aggression, not to say like, you know, you're all pissed off right now or anything, but what is causing issues? What is causing problems? And Uranus right here at that critical degree of Aries, that 29th degree where Mars is going to be on top of it, Mars hitting Uranus is like liberating yourself from that. Like, what are you trying to do? Uranus is either going to throw you sky high to get where you want to go or bring you right back down. And so my biggest suggestion is while Mars is on top of Uranus, don't let the anger and the aggression or whatever is frustrating you, whatever's ever causing problems, don't let that hold you down. And I mean that by saying, things may appear to be sinking and be going a little bit faster than you thought. Like, that's the Mars on top of Uranus. It's like all of a sudden shit is just sucks. Like, Mars is an angry planet. Uranus is, you know, volatile. It's unpredictable. It's the biggest thing is, like, you may have an opportunity, there may be a chance of, like, Mars on top of Uranus maybe ruining your day. But it's about having Mars on top of Uranus going, where do you need to free yourself from that? Where do you need to find I don't want to say find. Uranus is like super consciousness in a sense. It's like really tapping into your intuition in an electric sense. It's kind of like Saturn is prisons and walls and barriers. Uranus is like freedom and liberation. So Uranus is like, okay, how do we get past these barriers? How do we get past these walls? And Mars is like giving you the energy to do that. So if you have these barriers, you have these walls, break through it, man. Like, get hyped up, get angry about what's causing you problems, and feel yourself, like, feel free to just, like, get angry. Feel free to express that. Feel free to get that out. Find a healthy coping mechanism for that. Don't just scream and yell at people, but, like, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. That's the best way to put it. So going into Wednesday, that's when the Mars-Uranus conjunction just started. Like, Wednesday morning, you'll definitely be feeling it. You'll feel that energy. Use that to your advantage as much as you can. Don't let that hold you down. However, on Wednesday, the moon is also going to go into Gemini, and it's going to be applying to a square with Mercury. So while the moon's in Gemini, while we're, you know, thinking of different things, our thoughts are racing, you know, messages are left and right. The moon in Gemini is very much like things are kind of, it's kind of like, you know, when you go to, I've never been to one, but when you watch like the stock trade, like the Wall Street stuff, and everyone's just yelling at each other, like that's kind of like the moon in Gemini in a sense. But as it's squaring Mercury in Pisces, where Mercury's now in detriment, Mercury's not operating exactly where it wants to be, this can be a big time of like where you want to get things clear. It may not exactly look like that, and that's okay. It's just about expecting and knowing that it's not exactly going to be looking clear. But while Mercury's in Pisces, it's not about having messages written down or, you know, being very clear in your communication. Mercury in Pisces is more of like logos. Like Mercury, literally, like the translation is like logos if you go like into Greek stuff, which I know nothing about. But anyway, like the idea of logos, the idea of images, the idea of messages and communication in that visual sense. Mercury in Pisces is like, hey, you know, how do we understand this? How do we communicate this in a different way, in a more, I don't want to say an artistic way, although that does apply, but you know, it's not going to be a clear message. How can you understand the message just by, you know, it's kind of like when someone says something, you don't really get it, but you understand what they're saying, but you're picking up what they're putting down. That's kind of like the Mercury and Pisces energy. And as the moon applies to that square with that, just go with the flow of things. Like, not everything has to be laid out flat. You're not going to know exactly how everything's going to look moving forward. This is still all up in the air. So what I'm trying to say basically with all of this is like, hey, Tuesday and Wednesday are going to feel a little bit crazy. You're not going to get all the messages that you need. You're going to feel a little bit angry, but the biggest thing is just roll with it. Go with the flow. Don't hold on to expectations. Expectations are basically premeditated judgments. So anyway, as we go into Thursday, the moon then starts to apply to an opposition with Jupiter, where as Mars also goes into Taurus on Thursday as well, I needed to hit on that. This is where it's kind of like, okay, things kind of sink in, and it kind of comes down to the moon being in Gemini of like, here's all these messages. The moon's opposing Jupiter, where Jupiter's like, but what's the one thing that you want? What's the clear path that you want to go to? Jupiter in Sagittarius is like, hey, like, you know, this is where you want to go. This is what your dreams and your aspirations and your hopes are. The moon in Gemini just opposing that is kind of like, which way do I want to go? Which options do I have? And what information do I need, or what do I need to understand in order to take that next step forward? And on Thursday, as Mars then goes into Taurus, right after having that conjunction with Uranus, as it goes into Taurus, things are going to cool down a lot more. Mars is in a fixed sign now where it's steady, it's stable. It's in its detriment, don't get me wrong, but Mars is in Taurus, like, you know, it's not about initiating. It's not about, you know, compromising. It's about fixating on something. And Mars in Taurus is like, you know, whatever decisions or whatever things that you kind of figured out this week, be prepared to commit to them for a little while. And as Mars is in Taurus, this is about going, okay, where can I find the consistency? Where can I find the value in my energy? How can I really apply this in the most, I don't want to say efficient way possible, but the most secure way possible. It's not about, you know, tackling everything on at once, but going what matters most and what is the most valuable thing to put my energy towards. And while Mars is in Taurus, this can deal with stuff like, you know, Mars is an angry planet. Mars deals with frustrations. This could be like, you know, can deal with a little bit of laziness, can deal with a little bit of, you know, I don't want to say getting out of your comfort zone is going to be a struggle. It can just be very stubborn for you to change your mind about stuff. So the best way to kind of work your way around that is don't put yourself in a position where you need to change your mind. Like Mars is in Taurus. Like make sure whatever you're doing, you're fixated on it, because that's what Mars in Taurus is going to do. However, as we move into Friday, we have the moon going into Cancer, where as the moon goes into Cancer, you know, things are going to get a little bit more emotional. This is about trusting the process. This is about feeling things out and going, where do I need to be nurtured? Where do I need to be taken care of? What matters the most? And so as the moon goes through Cancer, Friday is going to be a little bit of an emotional-ish day in a sense. Mercury is also going to be getting super close to Neptune at this point. However, as we move forward into Saturday, though, this is when the moon starts to apply to an opposition to Saturn and Venus, where it's kind of like, all right, Venus and Saturn are getting really close together in their conjunction. We talked about that earlier. The moon's in Cancer, opposing it, going, what are my needs and what do I have to do? It's Saturn and Venus in Capricorn versus the moon in Cancer. It's a lot going on. So as we have the moon applying to an opposition with these planets, this is like, hey, you know, if I need to get this stuff done, this Saturn, this Venus stuff done, what are the first needs I need to take care of? What do I really need to take care of in the sense of like, yeah, Venus and Saturn are giving you guys a big workload right now, or a lot of responsibility is a good way to put it. And you want, Venus is in Capricorn, you want that responsibility, you want that seriousness. The moon in Cancer is going, okay, but what do I need? Where do I really need to apply that? And it's kind of like going, hey, do you need to focus on everything and get everything done, or do you need to focus on your needs more? And that's going to be different for every single one of you guys. So as we go into Friday and Saturday, just be really, not cautious, but aware of what are your needs? Where do you need to be taken care of? What do you need to feel? How do you need to be nurtured in the sense of what needs to be taken care of in order to, as far as yourself, your emotions, what needs to be taken care of in that sense in order to continue working on this Venus-Saturn stuff. So then as we go into Sunday, we have Venus conjoining Saturn. We have the moon going into Leo and squaring Mars right off the bat. So as Venus goes on top of Saturn, this is very much like Saturn's in Capricorn. What are the walls? What are the barriers? What needs to be structured? What needs to have better framework? Saturn's like, it's time to get realistic. It's time to get real as hell. Venus is like, I like the value of this. I'm investing into this. I see the results in this. I want to apply this more. And Venus on top of Saturn, it can feel very limiting. Venus wants to have fun at the end of the day. And as Venus is in Capricorn, she can't always do that the way that she wants to. However, it's not like she's having a bad time. It's just Venus on top of Saturn is very much like, you know, that sense of Venus of like being able to have that value and that love and that sense of like, man, this feels so good. It feels amazing. It's just not going to be there. This is going to be a very sobering, clear moment of like, I'm more serious. Like, this isn't the time to really put yourself and have a great blast of a time. This is like, I'm serious. What needs to be addressed? What needs to be focused on? I'm here ready to work. I'm here ready to change things. And so as Venus conjoins Saturn, the moon's going to go into Leo, where we're going to feel kind of proud about this. We're going to be like, all right, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm feeling confident about this. I want to go for this. I'm feeling high and mighty. It's also going to be squaring Mars, though, as Mars just gets into Taurus. So as Mars is in Taurus and the moon's in Leo kind of squaring each other, it's going to be kind of like, yeah, you want to get serious. Venus and Saturn's like, I want to do this. The moon and Leo's like, I'm feeling high and mighty about it. But Mars and Taurus may be hard to get out of your comfort zone. It may be difficult for you to like really initiate that. It could be a little bit difficult to, feel high and mighty and proud. You can be like, no, things need to stay the same. Things need to stay consistent. My biggest advice with it is the moon squares, like, you know, Mars as it goes into Leo. Like, don't get too over, cocky is a good way to put it. Don't be so stubborn about things. How can you be more open to change? How can you change that's going to be the best vibration, the highest octave, the highest way to operate in you for what works for you? What's the best way to do that? How can you get out of your comfort zone? How can you look at things in a different way? Get out of your own way and go, Venus is on top of Saturn. There's something I need to do. There's something I need to focus on. I want to do it. How do I get out of my own way in order to accomplish that? So that is going to be a pretty big deal. However, as we go into Monday, by the time we're doing this video again, Mercury is going to be right on top of Neptune. It's going to be not stationing retrograde yet. It's going to be going into shadow. And as it goes into shadow, Chiron's going to go into Aries next Monday, and the sun's going to go into Pisces next Monday. So we have, you know, Mercury going to shadow, Chiron's now in Aries, sun's now in Pisces. A little bit more of a different energetic shift in a sense. And the biggest thing is as Mercury goes into not into Pisces, goes on top of Neptune, this is when things are going to become blurry and a little bit foggy. Things are going to become very much open and expansive, and you're going to see a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. And so as Mercury starts to go into shadow, this is when we're going to come back to this. Like, we got a lot to focus on with Mercury and Pisces for the next couple weeks, and we'll be talking about that. And the Mercury retrograde video is actually going to be out this week. Sorry, I've been dealing with a bunch of other issues this week. Anyway, then Chiron's going to go into Aries, and I think I talked about that in my February horoscope. If you guys haven't checked that out, make sure you do. However, I have a whole Chiron and Aries video that I did last year. Guys, go ahead and check it out. I talk literally everything that you need to know about it. Then as the sun goes into Pisces, man, it's Pisces season, and it's weird, and it's emotional, and it's all up in the air, and it's change. We're going to be leaving winter and going into the spring, or vice versa if you live in the southern hemisphere. But with that being said, that's this week. This week is very much like, hey, it's going to reach a boiling point. You got to commit to that decision and get out of your own way. You've got to be serious. You've got to be willing to work on this change. You've got to be willing to do the work. And so as Mars, my biggest suggestion is Mars on top of Uranus is going to be frustrating. It is going to be like, but like, dude, like, just liberate yourself from that stuff. Like, what has Uranus and Aries shaped for you in the past 7 years? Like, that's what this is. This is the last aspect Uranus has before it moves into Taurus. So this is kind of like, Uranus has been in Aries for the past 7 years. It's been through this whole sign, going through one whole house in your chart. Like, what has that meant for you? Where have you liberated yourself? Where have you gotten creative? Where have you, experienced up and downs for the past 7 years? And Mars is kind of like teeing that off, basically, or capping it off in a sense. So my biggest suggestion is, like, let yourself feel it. Let yourself go with it. Don't fight it. Do not resist the universal energy, because it's trying its best to help you out and get to where you need to go. You just got to trust the process. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.